Saskatchewan teachers do important work for children and society. Their work and dedication have helped make our education system one of the best in Canada. Teachers are proud of their contribution. They believe they are entitled to fair compensation and a reasonable approach at the bargaining table. But Saskatchewan teachers have been without a contract for over a year. Collective bargaining has worked well in the past. It can work again. It's time for government to take responsibility. A message from the teachers of Saskatchewan.
North America's top two-wheel drives, four-wheel drives, and the supercharged alcohol-burning multi-engine tractors as they compete for over $75,000 in prize money. Also see Taurus, the incredible 1,500 horsepower, 8-ton 4x4 car-crushing monster truck. Advance tickets are available at the Centennial Auditorium box office.
Tonight's call-in poll: should Medicare pay for abortions in Saskatchewan? To vote yes, 1-900-720-0030. For no, 1-900-720-0033. Call now. Results at 11 on STV News.
If you love the nightlife and want to know what's happening on the Saskatoon entertainment scene, then join me, Colleen Wilson, for Good Company, weekday mornings from 10 till 11 a.m., right here on good-looking STV. Channel 4, Cable 3.
Saturday at 9 p.m., hit the streets with the best cops on the beat, McCall and Hunter. Saturday at 9 p.m., hard-edged action with Fred Dreyer and Stephanie Kramer in Hunter on STV. Thursday, February 11th at 8 p.m., the highly rated Swedish national team meets Canada for the final game before Calgary. Live from Saskatchewan Place on STV, Channel 4, Cable 3.
Tonight on STV News, results of our call-in poll.
In sports, Team Canada comes up with a huge victory.
And in weather, the warmer air is on its way. Good evening. The federal government announced yesterday that it would begin work on a new abortion law. However, Justice Minister Ray Natishan says the legislation will not be introduced until the provinces are consulted, and he would not give a time frame or any indication of what the law may contain. That leaves the legality of abortion committees and the funding of abortions in Saskatchewan up in the air, and leaves women who want an abortion wondering where to turn.
I knew I was pregnant, and I panicked. I can't be pregnant. You know, what would my parents think? What would, you know, all that. And it was just such an easy alternative. And everything just went so easy that I went through with it.
Susie is not her real name, but her story is very real. She's just one of thousands of Canadian women who have had an abortion. 10 years ago, she was 21, pregnant, and scared.
When I realized I was pregnant, I just thought, I'm pregnant, I can't be pregnant. And I talked to my cousin, and she says, well, you gotta have abortion. Well,
the number of abortions in the province has decreased dramatically since 1982. Now, that may not mean women are having fewer abortions, only that they're leaving the province to have them. In part, that may be due to large backlogs in the province, which started when extra billing was banned and many doctors refused to continue performing the operation. In the wake of last month's Supreme Court ruling, Regina General Hospital announced it would disband its Therapeutic Abortion Committee, giving full access to women who want abortions, no questions asked. Saskatchewan's health minister says the dismantling of committees in the remaining 7 hospitals which perform abortions in the province is imminent. But he adds any argument for or against them is academic.
The arguments about whether they were rubber stamps or whether they were effective and so on have always been around. It may be academic to talk about them now.
And I had to answer a bunch of questions on paper, and he told me the date, and it was a day procedure. I went in the morning, and I think there were 3 other girls that were also having one. And then I was let out around supper time, and that was it. It was, you know, done really quick and easy.
The question over whether the committees are effective are just a tiny part of the larger issue. There's no doubt the road to legislating abortion will be a bumpy one, not only here in Saskatchewan, but across Canada. This is a debate that's far from over. Wendy Taberge, STV News.
As Wendy pointed out in her story, there is no clear-cut policy in Saskatchewan on who should perform abortions or who should pay for them, and under what conditions they should be performed. In fact, the issue is so sensitive, City Hospital refused to grant STV News permission to take pictures of its abortion facility. Tonight on our STV News call-in poll, we asked you who you think should pay for abortions. The question stated, do you think the provincial Medicare system should pay for abortions in Saskatchewan? So far, 534 callers have said yes, while 2,992 callers have responded no. So far, an overwhelming number responding against such a move. Federal Finance Minister Michael Wilson released his budget today, and as expected, it's a very lean document. Some of the initiatives include the gasoline tax, going up by 1 cent a litre as of April 1st. Spending is to be cut by $300 million for the 1988-89 fiscal year, and only a slight drop in the deficit is expected over the next year. Ken Smith, the president-elect of the Saskatoon Board of Trade, joins me in the studio tonight. And thanks for joining us, Ken.
All right, very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
And there's really not a whole lot to talk about regarding this budget that Michael Wilson has handed down today. But what is the general feeling among the local business community?
Well, you're certainly right. There's more excitement in the hockey game than there was in the budget. The general feeling, I think, the first reaction is that it was more of a State of a Union address than it was a typical finance speech. I think everyone was kind of expecting that. And there were some interesting comments about the extent to which the federal government has gone to try and make a good environment to do business in Canada. But there certainly wasn't much financial news.
No, and I think one thing that's been a concern is the deficit. Obviously, the deficit in our country is a concern. And really, we didn't see anything in this budget that's going to help chop away at that.
No, that was our first reaction, too. Our concern is with the deficit and has been for a long time. The deficit is scheduled to, or is projected to go down by $400 million next year. If we keep at that annual rate of decline, it will take something like 80 to 100 years before we reach a break-even point. And we really think that maybe the federal government could be doing a little bit better job in that regard.
Okay, so where does the Saskatoon Board of Trade go from here with the budget?
Well, we're not sure where we're to go. Well, one of our concerns will certainly be the announcement of the $300 million reduction in expenditures. We don't know where those are and where they might be, but we'll certainly be tracking that. We're also concerned about the sales tax. There's, again, a promise that there has been some progress made about what they're going to do about sales taxes, but again, not much detail about what they are thinking or when those changes might come about.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you, Lisa.
Political reaction to the new budget here in Saskatchewan is one of a mixture of surprise and disgust. Finance Minister Gary Lane says he expected the budget to include more goodies, considering it will likely be the last budget before the next federal election. And he adds it won't affect the next Saskatchewan budget, which is expected to have more tax increases. New Democrat Murray Koski says it's a boring budget that does nothing to help the people who need help the most, especially farmers. He also attacks the budget for hitting motorists with the fourth fuel tax increase since the federal Tories came to power. The federal government will spend an additional $30 million a year to improve the quality of life for senior citizens. Health Minister Jake App made the announcement at the first International Symposium on Aging and Health in Saskatoon last night. Irene Pahala has details.
The Seniors Initiative is Ottawa's answer to providing a more independent lifestyle for Canada's elderly. Broken into 4 components, it's made up of a new $20 million Seniors Independence Program, a research fund of $4 million a year, up to $15 million annually for the New Horizons program, and an increased operating budget for the National Advisory Council on Aging. EP is confident the $20 million spent on the Independence Program will address the needs of special target groups such as older women.
Project activities will include self-care, mutual aid, education and training, support to caregivers, and organizational development.
The research fund will focus on disease affecting seniors' independence, initially Alzheimer's and osteoporosis. The money will be handed out on a peer review basis. Saskatoon's University, a drawing card for a part of that funding.
There's more money, obviously, that flows, let's say, to a city like Saskatoon than another city that's not a university city. I mean, that's just a matter of the nature of the kind of research that we do.
EPP says funding projects like these is millions of dollars less expensive than trying to further supplement old age incomes. Irene Pahala, STV News.
In the meantime, the Saskatchewan Health Research Board is being condemned for hosting this week's symposium on aging and health. Chairman Dean Ridley says the three-day conference allows policymakers and researchers to exchange ideas on senior health care.
How do we educate the population to look at the care that they are expecting and the care that makes sense for them? To what extent do we allow people to die naturally?
About 500 health professionals from Canada and the U.S. are involved in discussions at the Centennial Auditorium.
Coming up in sports, Team Canada defeats the Soviet Union and an NFL franchise in Montreal, a possibility.
The Saskatoon Food Bank is going to profit from tonight's Olympic hockey game at Saskatchewan Place. The food bank was given the 4 tickets turned in yesterday by Alderman Mark Thompson. The tickets were then auctioned off to the highest bidder this afternoon for $300. Alderman Thompson gave the tickets up, saying he didn't feel right about accepting them free of charge, while many residents could not even purchase them. Last night's grand opening of Saskatchewan Place was a success, and tonight's big hockey game between Team Canada and the Soviet Union was sold right out. But as Nancy Gregory explains, although everyone seems to agree the Sask Place is a first-rate facility, some improvements could still be made.
Delighted. That is how Saskatchewan Place directors and organizers feel about last night's grand opening. But the success of the opening has to be shared by many people.
Well, I guess one of the reasons, of course, is that the administration, the staff, had just done an excellent job, in my opinion, in getting it ready for such a large function.
However, Chairman Day admits last night was a learning experience and says while there were no major problems opening night, there is room for improvement.
There is going to be a little bit of fine-tuning. And again, I suppose that's going to be on a continuous basis. I think we will probably be evaluating each event that goes through there, and there will be things that we will look at and evaluate and probably do a little better.
City Transit was also pleased with how smoothly the bus schedule ran and hoped for the same success for the Olympic exhibition games.
We had set up a 15-minute schedule with some standby vehicles to fill in, and at one point from downtown we were operating every 2 and 3 minutes. And we'll be doing that again tonight and tomorrow night to try to keep them moving as quickly as possible so people don't have to stand around in the cold downtown waiting for a bus.
In addition to this week's Olympic hockey games, Saskatoon Transit will provide bus service for the rest of the Blades games this season and are continuing negotiations of services for future events. Nancy Gregory, STV News.
And finally, our guest editorialist tonight is city lawyer Bob Stromberg, who offers his views on publicly funded television and how it should serve to bring better understanding between the regions of Canada.
The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has a mandate to reflect the reality of Canada to Canadians. It's not an easy task, but sometimes the CBC does such a poor job, I wonder if we aren't just throwing our tax dollars away. The CBC has an unerring knack of stereotyping the different regions of Canada and presenting a jaundiced view to the rest of the country. The latest offensive programming decision by the CBC has to do with the 2 versions of the television drama, He Shoots, He Scores. The CBC has produced 1 version for French viewers and 1 version for English viewers. The French version, apparently, has liberal doses of full frontal nudity. The English version, though, has the same scenes with the same actresses completely clothed. Now, I don't care one way or the other if the CBC trots scantily clad women across the screen. After all, it is the boob tube. What bothers me is the CBC is so pretentious as to dictate different moral standards in different parts of Canada. What possibly can be the rationale behind such a programming decision? The only possible explanation is that the CBC thinks that Francophone audiences are mature enough to look at the artistic merit of the nude scene and appreciate the nudity as an integral part of the plot. But we unsophisticated Anglophones would start frothing at the mouth in either indignation or sexual frenzy. It doesn't make any sense. But looking at rationality out of the CBC is like trying to squeeze gold